Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to No Huddle Fantasy Sports. I hope you're doing well. Today is Thursday, September 24th, 2020. And with that, we're talking Thursday night football here on the channel, the DK Showdown video here at No Huddle Fantasy Sports, where we will break down the DraftKings specific app here, talk about the single game slate, the showdown slate, the captain mode slate, however you guys phrase it. We're talking about the single game tonight and which players you should be fitting into your captain spot, which players you should play in your flex spots, all the different scenarios. Everything will be covered here on this fun slate. And I do mention fun because to me, that is what these smaller single game slates are. Get you some vested interest in the Thursday night game. But in general, I don't take them as seriously in terms of lineups, in terms of money, as the Sunday main slates. I hope that you guys don't either. But hey, if you do, if you invest a lot of money, a lot of time into these slates, more power to you. I just think there's too many different ways it can go wrong, even when you play the most sound, best lineups you can. But in general, as I mentioned, have fun tonight. That's what these videos are designed to help you do. But as I mentioned, we have Thursday night football here. That is exactly what we are talking about. As always, I thank you guys so much for finding your way to No Huddle Fantasy Sports, finding your way here to the channel, navigating your way over to the channel. However you got here, I thank you so much for tuning in. It does truly mean a lot to me. We continue to grow the channel. It's absolutely wonderful here. Have really a lot of success with MLB DFS, even though that's winding down. And so far in 2020, it's been already one of the best seasons for NFL DFS for me personally and for the channel. If you go back to week 2, if you follow us at No Huddle FS over on Twitter, you can see some picks, some recaps. Week 2 was epic, unbelievable, had one of the craziest sweats going. Came in 5th place, top 5 in one of the biggest tournaments that FanDuel does offer. So that was absolutely excellent. In addition to that, I entered a bunch of, I shouldn't say not a bunch, but a couple of lineups into the ticket contest where you can win one of those mega $10,000 value tickets into the end of season FanDuel World Championship, whatever they call it. Came in 8th place in there. Had a real good sweat. Again, only a few points out of first. If certain things would have went my way in one of those last games, we would have had even a bigger night. But nonetheless, week 2 was a great start to the season. Let's continue to have that success going forward. So I encourage you guys, please make sure you're subscribed, share these videos, talk to your friends about No Huddle Fantasy Sports. Whatever you can do to help me help grow this channel, I do really appreciate it. And I do appreciate you guys for being here. But that's enough there. Let's talk about this particular slate. Tonight, Thursday night football, we have the Miami Dolphins visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot of people looking at this saying, oh, who puts this on national television? These teams are terrible. But in my opinion, it's a great, interesting, I think going to be a high-scoring game between these two teams. Some really interesting characters. You have Minshew Mania, of course, and you have, well, not yet to be seen, but hopefully soon, the Fitz Magic, the Harvard guy. So in my opinion, even though these teams might not be two of the more famous teams in terms of the last couple of years, I do think this is an exciting slate, an exciting game for Thursday night football. The over-under on the game is 48.5. 58 will be nuts. 48.5. So that does indicate we should have some offense tonight. More importantly, it's a -3 spread in favor of the home team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So not only should we have high scoring, but it should be a good back and forth game overall. All good things to see here, especially from a DFS perspective, if you guys are playing this DK Showdown slate. As always, I like to start kind of with an outlook. What are we dealing with in terms of defenses? It's important to know which teams, in terms of, we only have 2 teams, but which teams you want to attack more than the other. If there's a matchup that we can take advantage of, all those good things. I will say a lot of people are saying both of these teams have terrible defenses. But I submit to you, when we dive into these stats, which we'll only do for a couple of minutes here, you're going to see otherwise. The Miami Dolphins are clearly the worst defense, or the worser of the 2 teams on this slate. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are at worst an average team. But you're going to see a couple of stats here to indicate that they may not be. Now, of course, what I'm about to mention in terms of grading, in terms of stats, it's 2020 stats. We're only 2 weeks into the season in terms of data, so things could very, very quickly change. Heck, they could change after tonight's game. But overall, in terms of an overall defensive grade from Pro Football Focus, the Miami Dolphins are ranked towards the bottom of the league, 29th overall. The Jacksonville Jaguars are at a respectable 17th overall. I'm not saying they're one of the better teams. I'm not saying they're elite, but they're certainly not as bad, at least as of yet, as the Miami Dolphins. Next on, let's move to rush defense. This is where I think it gets pretty interesting. The Miami Dolphins are 18th overall, so you certainly see a much more improved rush defense for the Dolphins than you do compared to their overall defense and compared to their secondary. More importantly, surprisingly to me, and I did not know this, and I'm sure a lot of people that are talking on this specific slate don't know this either, the Jacksonville Jaguars are a top 10 defense so far in 2020 versus the run. In fact, they're ranked 9th overall, ahead of teams like the Indianapolis Colts, the Denver Broncos, the New Orleans Saints, the Baltimore Ravens. All of those teams are below the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are top 10 versus the run. What does that mean? Well, personally, I think I'm going to be avoiding running backs in this game. Unless there's something really interesting, let me know down in the comments below. But both of these teams are much better versus the run than the secondary, or should I say, than against the pass. With that said, what are we talking about from a coverage perspective, from a secondary perspective? How are these teams faring against the pass? The Miami Dolphins, sad to note, they are 32 out of 32 teams. Dead last, bottom of the bucket, bottom of the barrel, however you guys want to phrase it. The Miami Dolphins so far in 2020 are by and large the worst team, the worst secondary at defending the pass. So definitely keep that in mind as you pick players tonight. The Jacksonville Jaguars, on the other hand, they're 16th overall, so right in line with what I guess would be their average overall defense grade. 16th overall, not the best, but certainly not the worst, right in the middle of the road. I definitely think the Miami Dolphins fare much better in terms of a team, a secondary that you want to attack with wide receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks. Although both of these teams are better against the rush, I would attack both of them, again, with purely through the air. Whether they're throwing a rock, a football, it doesn't matter. The Miami Dolphins cannot stop the pass. In Jacksonville, not much better, but they are, I guess, a middle-of-the-road team versus the pass. Last but not least here, I do like to talk about the pass rush. I think this is an important indicator how teams are in terms of rushing the quarterback, and there's really not a lot to talk about. Jacksonville is 25th. Miami is 26th. What does that mean? Basically, the defensive fronts of both of these teams are nothing to be afraid of. And if we jump quickly over to pass blocking and how that matches up, because I think you can use both of these stats together to get an idea. Miami, 29th overall in terms of pass block. Again, a very surprising number. The Jacksonville Jaguars pass block, their front hogs, ranked 4th overall in all of NFL in terms of pass blocking. Probably why Minshew has had so much success over the first couple of weeks. They've been able to block up front, give him time. And in this case, you're talking about both teams not having a pass rush, but the Jacksonville Jaguars having a good pass blocking team. That to me means Minshew is definitely favored over Fitzpatrick here in terms of the ability to basically stay in the pocket and not have much to worry about and have time. I do like Minshew. So those are kind of the stats. Overall, I spit a lot of stuff at you. I spent a couple of minutes. You're probably asleep already. What does this mean? In my opinion, you want to use Jacksonville offensive players tonight. In general, the secondary of Miami is dead last, much worse than the Jacksonville Jaguars. They also don't have a pass rush, and you saw just from that last stat there, Jacksonville's front hogs, their linemen, are blocking very well in terms of a pass block, so I believe Minshew will have plenty of time to attack that secondary. In addition to that, the Miami, their better part of their defense is defending the run, so again, I want to attack them through the air. But on the flip side, if I do play, in my opinion, Miami players, those players will be generally offensive players through the air, so your quarterback, Fitzpatrick, and your wide receivers. That being said, we covered a lot of information very quickly there. Let's jump into the app here. Let's jump into the captain mode. Let's select our game and start talking about players. It doesn't matter what we start out with or which contest. We're talking captain mode first. Who are we going to play? I'll start off by saying Gardner Minshew wearing his jorts, his jean shorts, highest price guy on the slate, 16,500, especially at the captain mode here. He is by far, in my opinion, the number one scoring guy on the slate. I have little doubt he will score the most amount of points of almost any player on this slate. Does that mean I'm going to play him at captain? Actually, tonight I will not be playing him at captain. For the last couple of weeks, I have played players. Captain spots have been dedicated to quarterbacks, mainly because I believe they're under-owned, and they have been. But tonight, I think there is going to be a lot of ownership going towards Minshew at the captain spot. As a result, I'm not looking to play him at captain to maybe get a little bit of leverage there, hopefully with another player. But in general, I will not be playing him at captain, but he is going to be in nearly, I think, all of my lineups at a flex spot. So keep that in mind when we get to flex. Just in, actually, as I put this video out, because about 10-20 minutes ago, DJ Chark was not playing. So now that DJ Chark is out, in terms of a captain spot, my first guy I'm going to list here is Devontae Parker at 12,600. I think from a talent perspective, he is the most talented offensive weapon on this entire slate in this game, period. I think he's one of the best talented wide receivers in all of NFL, all of football. He's had a carousel of quarterbacks, not his fault, and he's still been able to perform. He does suffer from injury from time to time. He does not have an injury designation. He scored a touchdown last week. Devontae Parker is one of my favorite plays at the captain spot against a average at best Jacksonville secondary. There's other guys that are going to be mentioned here. Robinson, the running back for Jacksonville, has been playing well, but I mentioned Miami's defense has been better versus the run than the pass, so I think the opportunity is to come at them versus the pass. In addition to that, I think Robinson's going to see a lot of ownership, so for me, he's not a captain play. Gesicki, definitely a good play, tight end for Miami, has performed very well over the last couple of weeks, but again, I'm just not going there tonight. I want to stick with the wide receivers. Scrolling down the list here, Preston Williams, another Miami player, 10,200, stands out to me as a guy that can definitely go off at times in the right circumstances. I don't like him as much as Devontae Parker, but he's definitely a guy I would consider to get some leverage on the field here. Now, the idea here is going to be, where are we going to go at the wide receiver spot for Jacksonville? You can see first guy listed here. If I pronounce his name incorrectly, please let me know in the comments, but Laviska Shenault Jr., a guy that has done okay. You can see 3 receptions in each of the first 2 games, 35 plus yards, has scored a touchdown, 4 targets. But more importantly, this guy gets a lot of rushes. And by a lot, I'm talking from a wide receiver perspective. He has 2 and 5 in his first couple of games. So ultimately, you can see or predict he could get around 6 to 10 total touches. And especially with DJ Chark out, we could see a significant bump in targets for him. So he definitely is an interesting spot or player for the captain spot. But more importantly, the guy I'm looking at most here is Keelan Cole. He's been with them for a few years now. You can see has had 11 receptions over the first 2 games, 7 targets, 5 targets, scored in each game. Minshew looks his way in the red zone. This is my favorite Jacksonville captain player at the moment. And with DJ Chark out, we could see that those targets possibly touch double digits. He's definitely a guy I am interested in at the spot there. And then last but not least here, another guy I think is worth mentioning, or 2 guys I should say, Isaiah Ford here for Miami. Really cheap price on him, had 7 receptions in the last game, 9 targets. That's something you want to target here, literally target the targets. So 9 targets, 5 in the first game. I think that's a cheap spot, $3,000. Good spot for him. And we're going to have to see, I would double check. He has not done much this season, had 4 catches in his last game, 7 targets, so that's a nice spot there for $2,200. But Chris Conley, if he's going to get the start today with DJ Chark out, I think you can go there at captain also. Those are kind of the spots I'm looking at captain. Going back to flex here, I mentioned Gardner Minshew, definitely my favorite player on the slate overall, but not somebody I'll start at captain. I think you get more leverage at wide receiver today. Has been absolutely excellent. Has thrown 3 touchdowns in every game, or first 2 games, I should say. Exceeded 300 yards there in his last game. This dude is the man. He brings a lot of personality at the position. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I like going double quarterback. I think you can do it again here. Threw for 300 plus, 2 touchdowns in his last game, 47 attempts. Kind of what you expect really out of your Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's what he does. Has not been winning games necessarily, but this is what you expect. If we can get 27 out of him, he did look bad in his first start. I will say the risk is getting more and more serious that he will not finish a game. And by that, I mean Tua is right behind him. They drafted Tua to kind of play behind him the first season. I don't know if their expectations are to get Tua experience this year. I would imagine it is. So just be ready at any given moment. Ryan Fitzpatrick, if he has a game like he did in the first game, he could get pulled in the second half, and you lose a lot of fantasy points. And on a single game slate, that's an important thing to consider. I don't know if it's going to be today. I think we're a few weeks out, but just keep that in mind. That is an inherent risk. I mentioned Devontae Parker. If you don't play him at captain, definitely get exposure to him at the captain spot, or I'm sorry, at the flex spot here. Let's click into DJ Chark. You can see here towards the bottom, they're listing some of the guys we already talked about, whether that's Cole, Chenault, or Conley as the primary 3 wide receivers. So any of those guys come into play. I do really like Gesicki. He's gotten a lot of targets, has 8 receptions, 11 targets in his last game. Will he continue? We'll have to see, but definitely a good spot for him. Again, Preston Williams in a good spot. Chenault coming back down here. Cole. All these guys, to me, stand out. Isaiah Ford, I mentioned him as good flex spots. And so with that, let's build a quick lineup. I mentioned how much I like Devontae Parker. Let's throw him in. Gardner Minshew. If we could click him correctly. We'll throw Gardner Minshew in. Let's come down to Chenault. And who else? What did Cole have in terms of targets? 7 targets. Let's throw him in. Decent price there. We have 7,200, so we can pretty much go anywhere we want at this time. Let's go Gesicki and Preston Williams. There we go. We have a decent lineup with a captain spot of a player I do like. Keep in mind, guys, we're having fun tonight. This is the DraftKings Showdown slate, single game slate. A lot of various ways you can get absolutely screwed, even if you play the best lineup. But as I mentioned, I think you should definitely get your exposure to Minshew tonight, if not 100%, well, really close to that. He is by far my favorite player. I love Devontae Parker. I love the Jacksonville receivers. I'll mostly be fading running backs from this game. I think it's all going to go through the air. Hopefully we see some Fitzmagic tonight. We'll have to see how that plays out. But in general, again, have fun tonight. Don't take it too seriously. Get yourself some involvement in this Thursday night and enjoy the game overall. Hopefully these videos are helpful for you guys. You enjoy them. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Let's continue to dominate NFL DFS into Week 3. With that said, good luck tonight, and I will catch you in the next video.